The lie of the ceasefire. Gaza bleeds while the world watches. Ceasefire, a word that once meant silence of guns, a pause of death, a chance for humanity to breathe. But in Gaza, the word has been emptied of its meaning, mutilated by Israel's bombs, and buried under the rubble of what was once a city. This week, even after the ceasefire was announced and celebrated by Western diplomats as a step toward stability, Israeli warplanes roared over Gaza again. The airstrikes killed children, women, and aid workers, the same pattern that has repeated itself after every so-called truce. The ceasefire exists only on paper. On the ground, the only thing that ceases is hope. A truce in words, a massacre in practice. Since the ceasefire was declared, Israel has violated it dozens of times. According to Gaza's media office and international monitors, more than 80 Palestinians have been killed since the pause began, many of them while sleeping in shelters, hospitals, or schools. The Israeli government claims each strike is targeted against militants, but the images tell another story. Small bodies covered in dust, blood on the faces of doctors who have not slept for days, and fathers holding pieces of what were once their children. Israel insists it is acting in self-defense. But what kind of defense demands the obliteration of an entire people? What kind of security requires starvation, electricity blackouts, and the bombing of refugee camps? This is not defense, this is domination. It is a systematic state-engineered campaign to erase Gaza from the map and from memory. And yet, as the bombs fall, Washington and Brussels speak the same tired lines. We urge both sides to de-escalate. Both sides? When one side is armed with F-35 jets, precision missiles, and nuclear weapons, and the other side has no army, no navy, no air force, and no escape route, that's not a conflict. That's an execution. Israel's war without end. The truth that Western politicians refuse to say aloud is this. Israel does not want peace. It wants permanent control. Every ceasefire is a tactical pause, a time to reload, to reposition, to prepare for the next wave. Each truce is announced with the same choreography, a handshake, a press conference, a declaration of restraint. And then, within days, the bombs start again. In the past year alone, Israel has violated multiple ceasefire agreements, often within hours of their signing. The Gaza Health Ministry reports over 600 deaths after the last truce was broken, a massacre hidden behind diplomatic jargon. When confronted with these numbers, Israeli officials claim Hamas provoked them. But provocation has become the blanket justification for every atrocity, from airstrikes on schools to the blockade of medicine and food. Benjamin Netanyahu, whose political survival depends on endless conflict, said it clearly. The campaign is not over. And that is the only honest sentence uttered by any Israeli official in months. For Netanyahu and the ultranationalists who dominate his coalition, peace is a threat to their power. Their political capital is built on fear, vengeance, and a mythology of eternal victimhood. The United States, the arsonist pretending to be firefighter. Meanwhile, the United States, Israel's patron, protector, and supplier, continues to lecture the world about rules-based order. Washington sends billions in weapons, vetoes every UN resolution demanding accountability, and then performs a pantomime of humanitarian concern. President after president, Democrat or Republican, the pattern never changes, condemn the loss of innocent life, while fueling the very war machine that causes it. Biden, like his predecessors, has spoken of Israel's right to defend itself. But he never mentions Gaza's right to exist. His administration approved another arms shipment just days after Israeli forces resumed bombing Rafah. The same jets that level apartment blocks in Gaza are branded with Made in America. In truth, the United States is not a bystander. It is a participant. It supplies the bullets, the bombs, and the political cover that make these atrocities possible. It funds the occupation with taxpayer money while preaching morality to the rest of the world. Every American official who repeats the phrase, Israel's right to self-defense, should be forced to walk through a hospital in Gaza and look at the children with missing limbs, the victims of weapons stamped with American serial numbers. The U.S. could stop this war tomorrow if it wanted to. It could suspend military aid, demand accountability, and recognize Palestinian sovereignty. But it won't because the American political system is addicted to the illusion of shared values with Israel. even as those values rot into cruelty and impunity. Europe's silence, the cowardice of the civilized. And then there is Europe, the continent that lectures the global south about human rights while outsourcing its conscience. The European Union welcomed the ceasefire, then turned away as Israel broke it. European governments, terrified of being accused of anti-Semitism, have chosen silence over justice. They talk about democracy, but they fund occupation. They cry for Ukraine, but they close their eyes to Gaza. They wave the banner of international law, but only when it suits their geopolitical comfort. When Palestinians are killed, European leaders speak in euphemisms, regrettable incidents, unintended casualties, complex situation. But when Israelis die, the words change instantly: terrorism, barbarism, atrocity. This double standard is not diplomacy. It is moral bankruptcy. Europe's failure is not only political, but ethical. A continent that once swore never again now watches genocide live-streamed on its phones and calls it a complex issue. The ceasefire that never was. The concept of a ceasefire implies mutual restraint, but there has never been equality between occupier and occupied. Gaza remains an open-air prison, 2 million people locked inside, denied the right to movement, to safety, to life itself. Israel controls its borders, airspace, and seas. Every breath Gaza takes depends on Israel's permission. Under these conditions, how can one speak of both sides? Humanitarian convoys wait for days at the border while children die of dehydration a few kilometers away. Journalists are killed for trying to show the world what's happening. Hospitals are bombed, then accused of hiding fighters. This is not war, it is collective punishment. It is designed to crush an entire society's will to live. The ceasefire is a fraud, a performance for international cameras designed to buy time and silence outrage. The reality is uninterrupted warfare, dressed up in diplomatic language. What justice demands. The first step toward peace is honesty, and the first act of honesty is naming the aggressor. Israel is not defending itself in Gaza. It is annihilating a trapped population with impunity. The United States is not promoting stability. It is underwriting war crimes. The European Union is not neutral. It is complicit through its cowardly silence and arms trade. The world does not need another temporary truce. It needs accountability. It needs sanctions, investigations, and prosecutions, not photo ops and press releases. It needs leaders with the courage to call Israel's actions what they are: crimes against humanity. If the international community truly believes in the principles of law, then it must act. The International Criminal Court has jurisdiction. The United Nations has evidence. What it lacks is will, and that will not come from politicians but from people. Journalists, activists, citizens who refuse to accept the normalization of slaughter. Every time the world remains silent after another broken ceasefire, it teaches Israel that it can kill without consequence. Every time the U.S. signs another arms deal, it tells the victims that their lives are expendable. Every time Europe issues another statement of concern, it signals that Palestinian suffering is acceptable collateral damage for diplomatic convenience. The blood on their hands. History will remember. It will not remember the speeches of diplomats or the excuses of politicians. It will remember the children buried under collapsed buildings, the doctors performing surgeries without anesthesia, the journalists who died holding cameras instead of guns. It will remember that in the age of instant communication, the world saw everything and still did nothing. When the dust of Gaza finally settles, there will be no question of who was right or wrong. There will only be the shame of those who watched a people destroyed under the banner of self-defense. The stain will not wash away from Israel's flag, nor from the stars and stripes of America, nor from the 12 golden stars of Europe. Ceasefire. The word now sounds like mockery. For Gaza, there is no ceasefire. There is only survival, hour by hour, under skies that never stay silent.